friends. Welcome back to Dark Vibes Official, and I am your friend, Raj. Today I have brought a story which will not only bring sleep to your nights, rather it will also add a coolness to your morning teacup. Because fear is not just what is visible in front of the eyes, fear is also what is behind you, secretly breathing. So, get comfortable, dim the lights a bit, and come with me to a world. I worked night shift at a motel. Something followed me home. Ever walked alone at night and felt that prickle on the back of your neck? That whisper in the silence that tells you you're not as alone as you think? We take jobs in lonely places. We tell ourselves it's just for now, that the strange rules don't mean anything, that the odd sounds are just the building settling. But what if the shift never really ends? What if the worst part of the job isn't what happens there, but what decides to follow you when you clock out? Tonight, on Dark Vibes Official, a true story from the night desk, a story that didn't stay where it belonged. The neon sign at the Starlight Motel didn't actually depict stars. It was a flickering, sickly yellow crescent moon that buzzed like an angry insect. And beneath it, the vacancy sign was permanently lit, its red letters bleeding into the damp pavement of Route 17. It was the kind of place that existed in the seams of the world, a temporary haven for truckers with weary eyes, couples avoiding daylight, and people with stories they'd rather forget. My name is Leo, and for 8 months it was my prison from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. I took the job out of sheer panicked necessity. My student loans were morphing into a Lovecraftian horror, my crappy car had just crapped out, and the Starlight was the only place that didn't ask questions and paid in cash every Friday. The manager, a skeletal man named Mr. Henderson, who smelled of mothballs and regret, showed me the ropes on my first night. "Rule number 1, he'd croaked, his eyes glued to a tiny black and white TV showing static. "Rule 2, payment is always up front. "Rule 3, if someone checks in to room 114, you don't see them, you don't hear them, and you absolutely do not go near the door after they're inside. Just note the payment in the book." "Room 114? I asked, glancing down the register. The page for 114 was covered in a chaotic, faded scrawl of dates and cash amounts, but no names, ever. Mr. Henderson's gaze finally left the static to settle on me. It was flat, like a reptile's. "It's a private arrangement. Your predecessor, Dave, didn't mind his business. He's not with us anymore." He didn't elaborate. I decided I didn't need to know. The job was mostly mindless tedium, which was perfect for studying. I'd park myself behind the bulletproof glass partition, textbooks on municipal law spread open, and let the night crawl by. The occasional guest would shuffle in. We'd exchange cash for a key with a heavy plastic fob, and they'd disappear into the long 2-story concrete rectangle that was the Starlight. The sounds were a constant, unsettling symphony. The hum of the ice machine that sounded like a dying breath, the distant thunder of trucks on the highway, and the soft, persistent weeping of plumbing in the walls. The first time I felt it, I blamed the coffee. It was around 2:30 a.m., a dead zone. I was poring over a case study when the air in the lobby thickened. It wasn't a temperature change, but a pressure shift, like before a storm. A faint, sweet, rotten smell drifted through the pass-through drawer, the smell of old flowers and wet earth. Then a feeling of being watched so intense it made the hairs on my neck stand at attention. I jerked my head up, staring out into the empty parking lot, the pools of light under the lampposts stark and still. Nothing. Shaking it off, I went back to my book, but the feeling lingered, a silent, weighty companion. A week later, room 114 got its occupant. A tall, gaunt man in a long, dark coat that seemed to drink the lobby's fluorescent light arrived just after midnight. He didn't approach the desk. He simply stood at the edge of the light, his face in shadow. He placed 5 $50 bills on the counter by the pass-through. The money was cold, unnaturally so, as if it had been stored in a freezer. I didn't say a word. I just slid the key, a heavy, tarnished silver thing, different from the others, back through the drawer. He took it without a sound and melted into the darkness toward the west wing. I noted the cash in the book, my hand trembling slightly. For the rest of that night, the sweet rotten smell was overpowering, and the feeling of being observed was a physical weight on my shoulders.
The incidents grew subtly. The security monitor for the West Wing corridors would fizz to static whenever I tried to look at it after a 1:14 check-in. The ice machine would fall silent. One night, I heard soft, dragging footsteps coming from the second-floor walkway outside, but the camera feed showed nothing but empty concrete. I started having trouble sleeping during the day. My dreams filled with a sensation of sinking into cold, thick mud and the image of a door, room 114's door, standing slightly ajar, revealing only impenetrable blackness. Then, the night of the trucker. A burly man named Earl, a regular, checked into room 112, right next door to the vacant 114. He was loud, jovial, smelling of diesel and cheap whiskey. "Quiet night, kid," he boomed. "Quiet enough, Earl. Get some rest." Around 3 a.m., I heard it. A thud, muffled but heavy, from the west wing. Then another. Then Earl's voice, not booming anymore, but a high, strangled sound of pure terror, cut off abruptly. The silence that followed was worse. My blood turned to ice. Protocol said call the police. Mr. Henderson's rules screamed, mind your business. Cowardice won. I sat frozen, heart hammering against my ribs, staring at the silent security monitor, which now showed a perfectly still, empty corridor. An hour later, Earl stumbled into the lobby. He was ashen, trembling violently, his eyes wide and unseeing. "Earl? You okay, man?" He looked right through me. It came through the wall, he whispered, his voice ragged. Cold, so cold. It told me to be quiet. He dropped his key on the counter and fled into the night, leaving his rig parked haphazardly by the diner next door. He never came back for it. After that, the thing in 114, because I now thought of it as a thing, seemed more aware of me. The feeling of being watched was constant. The sweet smell would waft into the lobby at random times. Books would fall off the shelf behind me. The faucet in the staff bathroom would turn itself on, the water running ice cold. I gave my notice to Mr. Henderson. He just shrugged, his reptile eyes indifferent. Last paycheck Friday, leave the key. My final night was a marathon of fear. Every creak of the building was a footstep. Every shift of the wind was a whisper. The occupant of 114 checked in just after 1 a.m. The same routine, cold cash, the tarnished key, a silent retreat into darkness. This time, as the figure walked away, it paused. It didn't turn, but I felt its attention swing back to me, a tangible force pressing against the glass. A low, breathy sigh echoed in the lobby, though the figure's back was turned. The sigh wasn't in my ears, it was in my mind. I survived the shift. At 6:59 a.m., as the first gray light of dawn smudged the horizon, I shoved my textbooks into my bag, grabbed my final envelope of cash, and practically ran to my newly repaired Honda Civic. I didn't look back. I drove home to my small ground-floor apartment on the other side of town with the windows down, trying to blow the Starlight's miasma out of the car and my lungs. The first few days were a relief. I slept, caught up on life, started applying for sane daytime jobs. But slowly, I noticed things. It started with the cold spots. A patch of air in my living room right by the bookshelf would be noticeably colder than the rest of the apartment. The same sweet, rotten smell of decayed florals and damp soil would briefly taint the air in my bedroom, usually just as I was falling asleep. I blamed a dead mouse in the walls, a faulty AC unit. Then, the electronics began to misbehave. My laptop camera would activate on its own, the little green light blinking in the dark. My phone would drain from 100% to 0 in minutes for no reason. Static would whisper from Bluetooth speakers when they were off. The fear, which had receded, began to creep back, a vine tightening around my chest. It's just stress, I told myself. Post-traumatic anxiety from that hellhole. I was wrong. One night, a week after leaving the Starlight, I woke up paralyzed. Not sleep paralysis. I was fully conscious. I could see the red numbers of my alarm clock. 3:15 a.m. I could feel the weight of my blankets, but I couldn't move a muscle, not even to twitch a finger. The room was freezing, and at the foot of my bed, a shadow was coalescing. It wasn't a man in a coat, it was a deeper darkness, a void that warped the faint light from the street lamp outside. It had no discernible features, just a sense of towering height and a crushing, silent attention. The sweet, rotten smell filled the room, suffocatingly thick. A sound seeped into the stillness, a dry, papery rustle, like dead leaves being dragged across concrete. It was the sound I'd heard on the walkway outside. It was here. It had followed me home. The paralysis held for an eternity, that silent, watching presence drinking in my terror. Then, as suddenly as it came, it faded. The shadow dissipated, the cold retreated, and I could move. I spent the rest of the night with every light on, a kitchen knife in my hand, trembling on my couch. The following days were a blur of dread. The occurrences escalated. Cabinet doors would slam shut. The faucet would run ice-cold mud for a few seconds before clearing. I'd see fleeting movements in the periphery of my vision, a dark shape darting past a doorway, a suggestion of a tall figure in a darkened hall reflection. I was being haunted, stalked in my own home by the silent tenant of 114. Desperation led me back to the Starlight. I needed answers. Mr. Henderson was predictably no help. He found me banging on the office door in the afternoon. "Lost something?" he asked, not opening the screen door. "You know what's happening. The thing from 114, it's at my apartment." His face remained impassive. "I told you to mind your business. You didn't. Dave didn't either. He's the one who first let it hitch a ride. Now it's your problem." He started to close the door. "Who is it? What is it?" I yelled, my voice cracking. He paused, his weary eyes finally showing a flicker of something. Pity, or maybe just profound tiredness. "It's not a who, it's a what. A hitchhiker. It feeds on loneliness, on silence, on the fear of people who live in the margins. The motel, it's a bus stop. Room 114 is where it waits. Sometimes if someone looks at it too long, if their own life is quiet enough, it decides to come along for the ride. Dave got curious. You got scared. That's all it takes." "How do I get rid of it?" He gave a dry, rasping cuckle. "Dave tried a priest. The priest left screaming. Tried moving across the country. Wrote me a postcard from Seattle saying it was in his new closet. Last I heard, he jumped off a bridge. Silence is its soil, son. You have to make your life loud." He shut the door. I stood there, shattered. Make your life loud. It wasn't an exorcism guide. It was a survival tip. The thing from the Starlight thrived in the quiet, lonely spaces I'd cultivated. The night shifts, the solitary studying, the isolated apartment. It was a parasite of silence.
I declared war on quiet. I sold my silent apartment TV and bought a massive, booming soundbar. I played talk radio 24/7, sports analysis, chaotic political debates, grating morning shows.
I invited friends over constantly, even people I barely liked, just to fill the space with human noise. I took up the most annoying instrument I could think of, the harmonica. I played it badly and loudly. The effect was immediate. The cold spots vanished, the smells faded, the shadowy movements ceased. It was working. The entity recoiled from the cacophony of my new existence. But it didn't leave. It adapted. The noise had to stop sometime, when I slept, when I showered. In those vulnerable, quiet moments, it would strike. The paralysis returned with a vengeance, now accompanied by a new, terrifying development. Whispers. They were layered, multitudinous, a chorus of faint, desperate voices speaking over each other from just behind my head. I couldn't make out words, only the tone, a blend of profound sadness, bottomless hunger, and icy malice. One night, after a particularly loud gathering, I fell into an exhausted sleep. I was jolted awake not by paralysis, but by a touch. Something cold and dry, like old bark, traced a line down my cheek. The whisper chorus was clear now, a single sentence spoken by 100 dead mouths directly into my mind. We are so very lonely. I screamed, flailing, turning on all the lights. The room was empty, but on my pillow, next to my head, was a single dead oak leaf, damp with grave soil. It was escalating. It was getting stronger or more desperate, or both. My loud life was just a holding action. I was exhausting myself, and it was learning to wait for the cracks. The answer, the real one, came to me in a moment of sleep-deprived clarity. Mr. Henderson said it was a hitchhiker. A hitchhiker needs a vehicle. From the motel to my home, its vehicle had been me, my attention, my fear, my silence. But what if I could give it another vehicle? Not to pass it on to some other poor soul, but something else, a container. I remembered an old story my grandmother told me about spirits and thresholds, about something called a witch bottle. I acted fast. I bought a small, thick glass bottle with a stopper. I filled it with things that symbolized a boundary, a rejection, sharp pins and needles, rusted nails, a handful of salt, a slip of paper with my name written on it, and finally, a few drops of my own blood. The old lore said to bury it under your threshold to trap malicious intent. I couldn't bury it under my apartment door, but I had a porch. That night, as darkness fell, I performed my ridiculous, desperate ritual. I placed the filled bottle in a hole I dug in the dry soil of a large potted plant on my porch. As I covered it, I didn't whisper a prayer. I spoke firmly, out loud, into the growing dusk. You are not welcome here. This is not your stop. Your ride ends now. This is your room. Stay in it. I went inside, my heart pounding. I didn't play the radio. I didn't call a friend. I sat in my living room in the deliberate, tense silence and waited. The cold came first, a wave of it that frosted the inside of my windows. The sweet, rotten smell choked the air. The shadow formed in the corner of the room, darker and more solid than ever before. The whisper chorus rose to a deafening, silent roar in my skull. Lonely, cold, quiet, empty, stay with us. It was furious. It was here for me. I stood up, facing it, my knees shaking. I pointed a trembling finger at the porch and shouted, my voice breaking, "Your room is out there. I checked you in. Payment was received. Now get out." I braced for an attack, for the paralysis, for the cold touch, for my heart to simply stop. Instead, the shadow shuddered. It seemed to fray at the edges, its form straining between me and the direction of the porch. The whispering fragmented into confused, conflicting echoes. It was being pulled, its attachment to me, the original vehicle, being challenged by a new designated anchor, the bottle.
With a sound like a sigh of static and crumbling leaves, the shadow streamed away from me, not vanishing, but flowing through the closed door, out towards the porch. The cold and the smell went with it. I stood there, gasping for a full hour before I dared to move. I haven't slept properly since. I keep the radio on, but now it's out of habit, not terror. The cold spots are gone, the smells are gone, no more whispers. But I know it's not gone, not really. Every morning without fail, I check the large pot on my porch. The soil is always disturbed, as if something has been digging, trying to get out. And every morning, nestled in the dirt, I find a single dead oak leaf, damp with grave soil. The vacancy sign in my life is finally off, but I know, somewhere just outside my threshold, in a bottle prison of glass and salt and iron, something is still checked in, and it's always, always waiting for quiet to fall. Friends, the story is over, but the questions probably still remain. How did you feel about this story? Have you ever encountered such a stranger? Have you felt a sense of alienation? Please share your experiences in the comments section, because this channel has survived because of your words. If you like original dark stories, be sure to subscribe to Dark Vibes Official, and also press the bell icon so you're the first to be notified when new stories like this come out. That's all for today. Thank you, and remember, voices in the dark only sound strange when you're not alone.